Welcome back to For the Republic, another episode here. I'm Lewis. That's our boy KD. What's up, man? We can't really see.
Oh, you can't
The
see?
mic is in the way. Yeah, your mic is in the way. It's about
Oh,
yeah.
well, fuck the mic.
Well, he's covering the Trump thug life. Well,
Oh,
if
I
you're
was saying
gonna
we
do
can see
Trump,
my middle finger.
I'm gonna do team. I'm gonna go on our team here. I'm gonna choose a different team. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Let's choose a different team
Where are you
right.
gonna pick it? Oh,
See right here. I'm gonna choose my different team.
ew, what is
Team,
that?
team pizza biting. Team pizza.
Oh shit, my mic.
So,
Wait, go back to it.
oh,
I want
all
to see it
right.
again.
Why'd you put your background off?
All
It's
right.
a new episode here. You gonna take a picture of it?
No, my mic disconnected. That bald guy's looking at you. That's why I wanted to show you.
What? What do you want? What do you want?
Kiss him in the forehead.
Mm,
Yeah, it's because whoa, you fat piece of shit.
I got our boy Mike in the background. What's up?
Just staring at you.
Yeah, he wants to be on TV right now. Well, you can't because he got a serious episode to discuss today. No matter how stupid your background is, we're gonna talk about some serious stuff. We have some updates from Gaza, from Israel, Hamas. We have more on Iran, progressives, Democrats, speaker fight, Trump, everybody else, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, just a bunch of updates on everything. So this is why we're doing an episode earlier. We usually just do one a week. We're going to do 2 week, just how important the situation is. And I guess we're going to talk about more of the. We're just going to talk about more of like the fallout of what's happened. If you want to find out some more content to share about Gaza as we start here on Deep.
Yeah.
So Israel has began carpet bombing Gaza, and the world is freaking out. As you've seen, people around the world, famous people, people that I guess I mean they don't really matter, and you shouldn't really care about them, like Andrew Tate or Tristan Tate, the Tetas brothers. They're they're out here in support of Palestine, pretty much getting into Twitter feuds with Ben Shapiro, which we'll get into later, and other people among, especially among the American left and the global left, like progressives and communist dictators around the world in South America and Africa, pouring their support behind Hamas, even though Hamas is standing in hiding behind the Palestinian people, holding them hostage, or as we'll discuss later on, is Hamas and Palestine synonymous? Do Palestine and Hamas go hand in hand? Do they agree? We'll get into that later. But let's just get right into it. You've seen the reaction from everybody else. You've seen how effectively the United States and the West has united around. Everyone's leaving Ukraine. Nobody cares about Ukraine anymore. Everyone's focused on Israel and Hamas, which I guess you for the first time really can't say was started by the United States. This incident, so that's why
Mhm.
nobody's really focusing on the right wing. Isn't really focused on it's Biden's fault. It kind of is, but it isn't. The
Uh,
conflict precedes Biden, literally precedes Biden. Even though that's kind of difficult since Biden's been in politics since for like 50 years as of this year.
I mean, did they really stop caring about Ukraine? Did they send out like 200 million more um on AIDS to
Well,
Ukraine?
I mean, like publicly caring about Ukraine.
Public? Okay.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
gonna send
Yeah.
money to whoever they send money. They're
Yeah.
sending money to people we don't even know about. But
Yeah. Right.
and the thing is that like it's kind of complicated because it's not a black and white issue. Even though progressives make it seem as if we treat it as it is, and the right wing sort of doesn't want to tread the line of well, we don't know who to support because Biden and the left and the politics, so they don't know. But they support Israel because it was a nasty attack, and at the end of the day, we don't like Hamas. This was a terrorist attack, so it's kind of difficult. But then again, the American right, I think the MAGA right. I don't know about we'll talk about the neocons, but I think the response from the right, obviously, there's the MAGA wing, which says it sucks that there's war. We don't like war. We want this to come to an end. You know, we don't really want Israel bombing the shit out of Gaza. We would really prefer them to strike. Hamas, but that's difficult when Hamas is literally spread throughout the entire city of Gaza and the entire region, and you don't really know where they are, except
Yeah.
maybe homes. But when they have perhaps bases in hospitals and schools and nurseries and business centers and malls, etc., it's
Yeah.
difficult to kind of find them. And and so that becomes unrealistic. And then the American left, or let me just stick on the right. And then you have the neocon right, which is like, we're going to take this opportunity to invade Iran. I mean, you've heard people like Lindsey Graham, you've heard Nikki Haley, and then you've heard people like Mike Pence effectively say the United States should endorse Iran and Iran should bomb oil depots that belong to Iran. Literally beginning World War III, which is an insane endeavor, which would probably never happen, and I hope doesn't happen. But this should tell you, in times of conflict, in times of actual, let's relax, let's calm down and think about what we're going to do next. What do we do? How are we going to go forward with this? You're seeing people saying, "Oh, you know what? Fuck it all. Let's just bomb everything, bomb everyone," without really thinking about the repercussions of that. No, not thinking of the lives lost, not thinking of the innocent lives lost in particular, because even if you do target a even if you are targeting certain places with missiles, you always know civilians are going to effectively get injured or unfortunately die from these strikes. These are
Yeah.
things that happened in Syria. These are
Right.
things that happened in Yemen, happened today, in Kuwait, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, all over the world where there's been conflict. I mean, the Democrats from the Obama administration who are in the Biden administration now should really have a pretty good experience with this, considering how many civilians they bombed through drone strikes and other mechanisms in Syria, Yemen, South Sudan, Pakistan, even. They should know. So this isn't an easy thing to go through. And I think the biggest problem is that both sides, the ones that support Palestine and even sometimes the ones that support Israel, are trying to make it seem as if it's black and white. I like the MAGA's response because they're trying to be consistent with their message, even though they may not be perfectly concise. Where they're trying to say, yeah, it sucks that it happened. They do have a right to defend themselves, but we should have nothing to do with it because we have our own problems. And I'm saying, okay, great, but that is kind of difficult when the Democrats and the neocon Republicans that led this country have effectively imported like a lot of Hamas sleeper cells into this country, and the southern border is wide open, where even more people are walking in, and you don't really know what if they belong to a terrorist group or not, because once they get in, you can't find them. So this isn't a problem you can just let go away and say, "Oh, that's in Israel. Let them deal with it."
Yeah.
Especially when Israel has been a particularly important piece of geopolitical strategy for the past decades, where if you've tried to use the line of Israel's the only democracy in the Middle East, we have to do everything we can and fund them. It's been for this moment.
Right. Right.
A moment they have surely disappointed us with, because I guess we're going to get into right now the effective response from Israel. But I think what's going to overshadow them and what's overshadowing them now, which I don't think they expected, is did Israel know and what happened? I think that's going to be the biggest question. Now,
Yeah.
Egypt has already come out and said, we told them. We told them this could happen, and they didn't do anything about it. I don't think it's that they ignored it. I think they probably just didn't think it was going to happen. Or the more cynical of all, did they let this happen?
Do you think they probably just underestimated?
I don't think they underestimated. I think that's one point people have to. I don't think they underestimate Hamas. I just think because I have never been to Israel. You've never been to Israel, but I listened to people who have gone to Israel, and apparently, whenever you're on the border with the Israeli border with Gaza, it's a completely surveilled area. I mean, you can't spend 30 seconds without running into a soldier who patrols the border from the IDF. It's
Sure.
completely it's a extremely innovative, technologically sound border with detectors, everything. And so that's what makes you think if this is the most secure border on the planet, which it is, factually it is.
Better than ours.
Oh yeah, better funded than ours. But
Yeah.
I mean, just imagine
Um,
how did this happen? Was there an order to stand down? Because people are going to start saying this. If this is the most secure border in the world, and it is, because it has to be, because it does difference with us is that it's not that we need the most secure border in the world. That's not really it. We don't have to spend billions and billions of dollars securing the
nah.
border.
Yeah.
like they do because we don't have the threat. Mexico nor Canada is chanting slogans to get rid of us and to say we need to get rid of all of them. All of the Jewish people and Israelis need to be cleansed off the planet. They're not, they're not saying that about us. So we don't need that, but they do. That's why they have it. How did this happen? How did they fail?
Right.
So
Well, what do you think about leader of Hamas calling for what's it called? A jihadi day, something like that?
yeah, so the former leader of Hamas is effectively calling for a global day of jihad in support of the Palestinian suffering, of Palestinian suffrage, and a calling for the end of oppression and colonization, which is bogus, but whatever. They have to market it. And not only that, he's asking for money. He's asking for money from people. He wants money. He wants supplies. He wants people. And he said it himself. He wants people
Blood and soul.
to put their blood and soul out there for the cause, and he's making sure that people in the West, find out the pain that they're suffering because, they say the West has antagonized them and caused these problems. I mean, it's really Iran that uses you. I mean, that's kind of the sad reality. The Palestinians don't want to be aren't or think they're colonized by the Israelis, but they're really pawns of the Iranians, which is the saddest reality. They don't know who they're playing for,
Yeah.
and they
Right.
don't know that if the Iranians don't have use for them anymore, they'll just get rid of them like they do other places. Nobody
Mhm.
talks about the Kurdish people. Nobody talks about Syria anymore, or Yemen, or Oman, or Kuwait, or South Sudan. Everybody's just talking about Hezbollah in Iran and Hamas. That's all they care about nowadays. We
Now,
don't know.
why? Go
But
ahead.
no, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, why are they going around saying that the people like the Jewish people in Israel or Israel in general, like the colonizers when they have done stuff like that past in like past histories. So it's like what is the main history background when it comes to Jews going to Israel? Like was it like a huge migration during the World War or how did that went?
Well, I'm not an expert on this, and it's kind of difficult. But remember,
Okay.
it's like after the World War, they were effectively, after the World War, there were all these millions of Jewish people who were effectively refugees.
Okay.
I mean, I think we forget in Europe, all of Eastern Europe is filled with what was they used to be called Volga Germans. These were effectively refugees of Eastern Europe. They weren't Germans, but they were ethnically tied to the German Empire, to the German lands, Sudetenlands and all of that. They were refugees. They were spread out. I mean, Eastern Europe was on fire from Germans and Soviet warfare, from
Yeah.
scorched earth. These were
Yeah.
just barren lands. You couldn't live anywhere. They were all just walking everywhere. And Poland was just a mess. It's kind of why Poland is what it is today, why it votes the way it does today, why it wants to be a secure nation with zero migrants, because it has a constant fear of being overrun, and it has been because it's been constantly invaded by whatever side, and it can't depend on foreign powers to save it because, well, they didn't. The British never came to save them. The British gave them away. So the German Jews, and a lot of the other Jews, Austrian and Polish, a lot of them, because they had nowhere to go and they didn't want to keep them in Germany, they sent them to the place where they hated them a little less. They hated them, but not as much as the Germans. So they don't want them to
Oh,
exist in the world, but they sent them somewhere. So who sent them? The British. Why did the British send them there? Because they had a spiritual, historical, and even a religious attachment to Jerusalem, to Israel, that is Judea, which it was in its heyday back in the Roman times when the Romans were conquering the world, or the
yes.
world that they knew existed, the
Yeah.
kingdom of Judea. And that was one of the many sites where Jewish people suffered genocide because the Romans committed genocide against them. Not because they were really anti-Semitic, but because the way they did warfare was, we are going to conquer you and
Okay.
eradicate you because we
Right.
don't want people that aren't Roman. We want Roman people here, not Romans from Rome, but Roman citizens, people that understand that they have to follow our history, our culture. So they're going to force you to assimilate. And if you don't assimilate, what do? Well, there wasn't. It's not like they had citizenship tests back then. It was either you do it
Right.
or you don't live, and that's what they did. They murdered hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of people who were of Judea, and to make things worse, what they did was they got rid of all of them. They destroyed countless. It gets kind of ugly. That's why kind of people don't really. That's why I kind of. That's my. That's critique against the Romans. What? Not only just the people they killed, but just the cultures they eliminated off the face of the planet. The art, the books, the history, all gone. Just like when the Romans went to Egypt or and they got rid of the temple of the Library of Alexandria, which has reportedly had books that explained all of human civilization before that. So people debate nowadays, how much information, knowledge of ourselves did we lose when the Romans burnt that down? Why? Well, because they do the same thing. They burn things down. They eliminate history and they begin it anew. Kind of like a pre-Marxist concept.
Right, right, right.
So the
And
Jewish people had suffered this before. What do? They bring in people, Arabs from Syria, from other regions in the Middle East, what we consider the Middle East today, and they're brought there, and they really call it Palestina, or
Palestina.
Palestine, or Palestine, what it's called today. And those people lived there for centuries under different things, and until recently, until the World War II, they were they were subjects of the British Empire. I wouldn't really say they were citizens, but they were subjects of the British Empire. And under that, the British Empire had control of them, of those lands, and said the Jewish people need a place to go. They're now refugees. They can't go to Argentina and Chile because that's where the Nazis are. And maybe Hitler. We don't know. We can't
Right,
really
right.
take them to America because America says we've had enough German refugees, we have enough people, and we just took a bunch of these Nazi doctors that helped us make this atomic bomb. So I don't think we have too many. There are enough Jewish delis in New York City. That's what they said, literally. There's enough Jewish delis in New York City. We don't want anymore. So what they said was take them somewhere else where they can be Hasid and stuff like that. And so the British said, you know what? We're gonna put them where they don't hate them that much. They didn't take them to Japan where they're gonna be like, who the fuck are these dudes? They took them where they shouldn't have gone because
Right.
some annoying Jewish guy was like, we should go over there to Jerusalem and do and cook up some chut. That's food they eat. And so they sent them there. And then this happened because the Arabs that were there for, literally hundreds of years literally said, yeah, we were here first. I get it that their ancestors were here, but they were like genocided and then we were here. We've been here longer than them. We don't know that, but until recently, our ancestors have been here longer than them. What are they doing here? And then out of nowhere, they just partition the place and say, well, you have half Jerusalem and I'll have half Jerusalem.
But
And
it's
that's what
still
they did.
it's still a problem for them right now, though.
And it's still a problem. And the British have literally said, all right, that's not my problem. I did it. We saved the Jewish people. It's fine. It's fine. We gave the Palestinians independence. All right, we're out. We're done. We left. All right. Have fun, guys. And that's the British today.
The reason why I asked is because like I'm seeing so many um posts from from X, Twitter, Instagram, and all you see is colonizing and conquers. It's like, well, how much history have you guys learned? You guys simply just saying colonize and conquer, but you're not being a bit more specific about it. I
Uh,
I'm over here sitting. I'm not saying that I'm pro Palestine. I'm not here saying I'm pro Israel. I'm pro truth. I just want to hear the truth. That's all I'm hearing. That's all I want to hear. So that's why I'm just trying to. That's why I'm trying to be curious on the old history on how it first started. I know you said that you don't know too much about.
yeah,
Um,
I mean, people. I think I said this last episode, but I'm pro-Israel because up to the point of how much should we help them? Should they not be helped? And I thought that the
yeah,
Abraham
right.
Accords were a step in the direction of, yeah, eventually we're not going to have to babysit you all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
That was with the Abraham Accords. That was it. And the Israelis, I think, understood that. I think the problem is that Netanyahu has. I think is that I don't think he's prepared for a world where Israel can survive on its own as its independent republic. If they want to be liberals who get triple booster vaccines, let them do that. I don't care. That's not my problem. And I think that's what the right is saying is why do we have to be not meddling because it's not really meddling, but why are we responsible for that? I get it. We have a relationship, but
Right.
eventually you should be able to grow up and develop yourself. And you said something to me before this episode, this podcast. You were like, "Well, why don't the British take responsibility for it?" And that is a kind of a dirty thing because they are responsible. But the thing is that empire doesn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't. No.
It's dead. It died a long time ago.
It did, yeah.
Died when it was dead when they did this. They just didn't know. Regardless of what the crown tells you, that empire died a long time ago. it had died, back in World War One, when millions of people just needlessly died in a war that pretty much didn't have to happen. But all those people died, and so that empire, and thus that empire died. And so they can't really go to London and say, "Hey, you guys did this." It's like, well, no, because we're not that country anymore. You guys have had independence for 70 years. Now, do they have responsibility in making things worse because the Israeli military with Suez and all that? Yeah, of course. But that's not with the Palestinians. Palestinians have nothing to do with that. Sort of. They do, but they don't. Because that was mostly towards Egypt. So Egypt has a gripe, but they've moved on and said, okay, we can be friends, we can be neutral at least, maybe trade, etc. Um, it's complicated. I think why
It
there's a
is.
reason why they call them colonizers, and it's not because of that, because they didn't colonize anything. The problem has been the land disputes. It's been the
Hmm.
West Bank, it's been the Gaza Strip, and it's
Right.
it's been the Golan Heights, and it's been this constant thing of, especially under Bibi Netanyahu, of this constant encroachment in additions of lands in the West Bank, on the Gaza Strip, in the Golan Heights, of making things Israeli when you don't need to. And then that's the thing. Are both sides playing fair? No. That's the problem with this debate, is that people like Ben Shapiro, while I agree with him on this, what's happened now, and most of it, he will never recognize that what they did was wrong, because the Israelis did abandon the West Bank and they did give Gaza back in 2005, and then they left in 2021. So they did leave. They have left this area. But those actions aren't good. But when last year Israel is sending missile strikes into Hamas, and not into Hamas, but Palestine, that does become a problem, because the people there, it riles them up more, and they now become members. They now affiliate more with Hamas, who says the things of, Israel is a cancer, they need to be eliminated, look at how they treat us, etc.
Yeah,
I
right.
thought Israel should have done one thing. They should have never let them be the source of power and electricity on a non-monetary basis for Palestine. If they were going to do that, they should have been charging Palestine. They
Hmm.
should allow the Palestinians to say, all right, you want to be your own country? Be your own country. But we're going to set the borders here today, now. And you need to do that on a global way, so the world sees that, okay, Israel's saying, we're going to make these our borders. We're not going to encroach them, but we do not. But if Hamas strikes Israel, that will be a formal declaration of war, and Israel will be allowed to strike. And there can be no country on the planet who's going to say Israel is colonizing. You can't. Instead, what they've done is they're controlling them, and they say, well, we control your source of food and your water and your electricity. And I get it. That is a thing you have to do. But it's just a bad look. There's just bad vibes, I guess you want to put it in
It
simple
is.
terms, on both
Yeah.
sides. And that's
Right.
the problem. Neither side knows how to play it. The liberal side wants to be buddy buddy with Hamas, who wants to kill them. And the other side, the Netanyahu side, wants to eliminate them off the face of the planet because they said those things before. Not Netanyahu, but the people who work for him, the ideologues behind him. They don't like Iran and they don't like Hamas. The problem is on Hamas's side is that most Israelis don't want to commit genocide against Hamas, but all Palestinians want to commit genocide against the Israelis. So that's when you run into the problem of, okay, I get there's Hamas, there's Palestine. Who is who and what is what?
Exactly.
Because
Yep.
as of now, and I've said this always, I will never take the Palestinian argument serious, no matter how much I've criticized or I have issues with Israelis' handling of the problem. I can't take them serious because who is your leader and who controls you and who speaks for you? Because this is one thing I've seen this weekend. The Palestinians have made it clear that as much as they want to say that they don't like Hamas, and that the people of Hamas are like the Taliban and Al Qaeda, people that control them through violence and coerce them to support them because they have guns and they attack them and they force them to be behind them. When Hamas commits acts of terror against innocent Israelis, the Palestinian people cheer. They celebrate them.
Right. Right. Exactly.
So which is what? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways where you say, I don't like Hamas, but I love when Hamas kills Israelis, because that makes you automatically two things: an enabler of terrorism, and in deeply genocidal and anti-Semitic. I mean,
Yep.
what you saw on that attack, when you saw reports of people of Hamas militants going into the homes of Israelis and bringing them out, or breaking in and shooting people. That is not just the Holocaust. We've seen there's an earlier example to bring things up for the black people that care so much about the Palestinians. Hamas is not acting anything better than the Rwanda genocide when the Hutsis and Tutsis went after each other, and they did the same thing when they went
Mm.
into businesses, hotel regions of Rwanda were divided between ethnic groups, and every night they would break into homes and kill people and target them, depending on what ethnic group they were in. Something they had no choice over. The people of Palestine had no choice over the fact that they were born Palestinian, just like I had no choice on being born Hispanic, just like you had no choice being born Indian. It just happened. It just happened. But you do have a choice of supporting a terrorist group that not only wants to commit genocide against a particular group, but engages in drug trade, engages in human trafficking, rape, the exploitation of children. They do this. Hamas is an ally of Hezbollah. They are friends with Boko Haram, and they are friends with all the South American guerrilla groups that have exported drugs into the Middle East and into Europe for decades and into the United States. They're all friends. Why? Because they all lean left, hard left. They're not just Democrat. They're not just socialists. They're Marxist-Leninist communists, like the ones in Peking, China, like the ones in Russia, like the ones in Eastern Europe, like the ones all over Africa. That's why they're all friends. It's not because they just hate Israel. One, the Arabs are all anti-Semitic, and then two, there's this little interesting fact I've noticed is that there's like this theme of the Israelis are, because of the anti-Semitism, which the communists, by the way, have always had. The communists have always been anti-Semites. The Soviet Union was anti-Semitic as hell. The only thing was is that they didn't just kill Jews; they killed everybody. So they were diverse in terms of their murdering. They
Yeah,
met their
right.
ESG scores.
They don't care who you are, man.
No, they don't discriminate. They kill everybody.
They kill everyone.
But they
Right.
have pretty good ESG scores.
You're right.
What these Africans, the other communist groups have is that Israel, because of the anti-Semitic trait of that Jews have a lot of money and Jews control banking and Jews control, they're rich. Israel is the representation, is the poster child of that Jewish stereotype. Israel is not a poor country. It's wealthy. It has a sustainable economy. It produces it. It's not. It doesn't live off the United States. It just lives off the United States for military aid. So all these groups, because they're inherently anti-Semitic, they don't like Israel. That's another theme I've seen. That's why you see that Black Lives Matter, BLM, despises the Israelis. Not only because most Jewish people are white and pale, because they don't go out in the sun and they can't really do sports, and they are. Have you seen one? But they are that representation. We have to remember that blacks and Jewish people have had issues in America before. Do we have to go back to the early 1990s in New York City when those race riots happened, when black men murdered innocent Jewish people, shot them up and killed them, and there were race riots? Are we going to go back
They
to
don't,
that?
they don't want to hear that, man. Come on.
Just like black people are the reason there wasn't a black mayor in New York City for years until Eric Adams. They're the reason. That killed his chances.
Ah, that's true.
Are we going to go to the New York City problem with the Asians, the Korean rooftop Koreans were pretty much targeting blacks that wanted to break into their businesses? They don't want to go there.
No.
So BLM has that problem, and that's why they support Palestine, because they view Palestinians as minorities. Palestinians use the bogus line of, we're the colonized, we're the oppressed, there's apartheid, we can't, oh my God, we want to commit genocide. Why won't they let us be free enough to commit genocide?
Oh, have you saw that post from BLM Chicago? They posted a pic of the paragliding Hamas soldiers was like paragliding down to the music festival. It's like a picture of it. I
Well,
don't know
that
if you
was
saw
it.
it.
That was it. And
Yeah, yeah. And I think they received a lot of backlash for that as well. It's pretty dirty, pretty disgusting. I don't know if I can see it right here. Let me BLM Chicago. They probably took it down though. don't know if they did. When it comes to resistance, the West has a clear double standard. It applauds Ukrainians but condemns Palestinians. That's funny.
Well, that's the thing. They don't. And this is going to be a red pilling moment for a lot of people that were victims of this. Unfortunately, I hate to make it political and say, yo, we're going to take advantage, but people are going to realize one, you have to realize, I hope people realize this is what happens when countries don't have Second Amendment laws. And not only just Second Amendment laws,
Yes.
when they actively prohibit the possession of weapons. Do you think Palestine doesn't doesn't Palestine have gun laws? Oh, how come Hamas has all these guns? I don't think the gun control worked.
Yeah, no.
I don't think it worked. But this is why things like this are difficult to happen in America. I get it. The mass shootings are a problem, but that's not because of guns. That's because of a civilizational downturn. Those
Yep.
are social issues. America has had guns forever. It can't be why until the 1990s we started having mass shootings.
Yep.
We've only had mass shootings since the 1990s on this scale. There's a reason for that, and it's not the guns. The guns haven't gotten bigger. It's not that. Don't blame it on the guns getting bigger and more powerful.
You ever notice every time there's a school shooting, they always like to blame the guns for it. But then if a white cop shoots a black person, they blame the white cop for it. But they don't blame the gun. They just call it racism. So just like imagine how funny that is. Like they're just flip-flopping the whole issue when it comes to the guns and then racism. So it's not a human issue when it comes to the school shooting. It's a gun problem. But if it's a white cop, shooting a black person, it's the white person's fault. But no, you are right. I think Second Amendments are a how can I say it? They are a must in the country. I think Israel should open up using the Second Amendment. They should do that.
They should really consider gun possession laws. Call it
Yeah.
whatever you want, but just gun possession laws. There's reasons why it's difficult to do that here, and if Hamas is serious about having this, global day of um of radical Muslim Arab terrorism around the world in Western countries, because that's what it is at the end of the day. And they have to. It's part of their religion. It's why they do this. It's religious, which is why I always laughed and I've written tweets about this. This is the religion of peace. This is it. They do this in the name of God. And this is why I find it ridiculous that there are people like Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate, who's Catholic, by the way. I don't understand. He's doing this to defend his brother, but dude, have some balls to at least disagree on this. I get it.
Yeah.
You want to seem intellectual. There are no intellectuals on the Palestinian side. They pretend they are. They're not. I don't understand this. You're Catholic. Buddy, they're going to kill you too. Hamas is going to murder you. They don't like Catholics. It's why when Patrick Bet David had those people come on and he asked that question, the Muslims couldn't reply. It's how
Oh,
come Muslims go to Washington
I
to
could not finish the whole thing at
wow,
all.
me
It
neither.
it was it was horrible. It yeah, man.
But
But you you
it's
you
such
are
an
you are
interesting
you are right
question.
though. You are right though.
Why do the
You,
Muslims go to Christian countries?
yeah.
That's it. And they can't answer it. They don't have a logistic answer. They can only say two things. Either they tell the truth and say, well, our country has freedoms that we can't really experience in America, outside of America or the West. Or the other one is, our job as Muslims is to conquer or, dare I say, colonize the West to make them embrace Sharia and Islam. That's what they do. That's what they do. This is the moment where I like people like Christopher Hitchens because they critique things like Islam, and I'm going to find videos like that so I'm going to play them because I think we have to go back to understanding that America has been at war with Islam for since its beginning. America has been at war with radical Islam since the beginning. It was called the Barbary Wars, where pirates out of Tripoli in Somalia, who were Muslim, would attack American trading ships in the name of Islam because, and they said it many times, the Americans are infidels. They are not only are they not Islam, but they are Christian, they are Protestant, they are Catholic. They do not believe in what we believe. They do not have Sharia, so they are infidels. And by default, that means the Quran commands us and gives us the authority to go and attack them and convert them, or if not,
So
eradicate.
dumb.
And that's what they do. That's what the book says. Don't
Yeah.
criticize me. That's what the book says. That's what they've done throughout their history. I've taken college courses. I've been to college. I went to college. I went to school. I read a book. I read the books. I took the courses on the Middle Eastern history. Middle Eastern history is a bloodbath ever since the birth of Muhammad and his death. A bloodbath. It's been caliphates in Egypt. It's been caliphates in Saudi Arabia, caliphates in Yemen, in Oman, in Kuwait, in Iraq, in Iran, everywhere. Caliphates in Afghanistan, caliphates everywhere. Literally fighting and killing each other. A brother kills a brother-in-law. A sister tells her husband to murder her cousin. The 50th son of Muhammad murders the fifth son of Muhammad because
Crazy.
I am the worthy leader of this branch of Islam. No, Sunni versus Shia constantly for decades, and it's still happening today.
Very peaceful.
Very peaceful. Very beautiful, by the way. I hate when women say that. Oh, it's such a beautiful religion. Yeah, they're gonna chop your head off. I hope you know that.
Yeah, have you ever saw the stats with people from Middle Eastern migrating to Western countries? And they actually found a stat for southern border in America of how many people from Middle Eastern were going straight to the southern border and then got caught. It wasn't like they were like hiding or anything. Like it wasn't like they ran up. They got caught from the southern border. I kind of want to like read out the numbers for you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So this is from Joey Manarino on Twitter
Yeah.
or X. This is within the 2 years. Syria 538, Yemen 139, Iran 659, Iraq 123, Afghanistan 6,386, Lebanon 164, Egypt 3,153, Pakistan 1613, Mauritania, I think I said it right.
Yeah, more time.
15, yeah, 15,594, Uzbekistan 13,624, Turkey 30,830. You mentioned earlier that why do they go to Christian countries rather than just being where they're at? And why don't you see Christian countries going to Middle East?
Right.
So yeah, you and the other question is, do you think this is intentional that they
Well,
come into the southern?
I think there's it's multifaceted. I think American interventionism in the Middle East has accelerated this. Accelerated. What did have we have seen immigration from Palestine, Iraq, Iran, um, places like Saudi Arabia, um, Turkey. We've seen that. There are communities in America that have these people, but these were from a different generation. These weren't the generation of today.
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
years
right,
ago, decades ago.
right,
So it's
yeah,
America's not hostile to immigration. We have just gone too far in allowing people from bumfuck anywhere in the world to come to America. If if Antarctica had black people, the Democrats would make diversity visas so that they could come here. End the fucking story. That's what they would do because immigration is what they want. It's always been called demography is destiny. In the 1990s, in the 80s and 90s, the Democrats were lost. The 80s, they couldn't win elections. The country was red, conservative leaning. What happened? They banked on two things. One, that the new Republicans would be neocons, which they weren't. They were right because Democrats are clever, they're not stupid. The ones that run things know how to predict the future. That's what they're best at, planning. That's why they like socialists, because they do 5-year plans. They fail, but Democrats are good at it. And then two, it was they realized that that white conservative group that voted as a bloc for centuries, for decades, I mean, and felt like centuries, was going to go away soon. They weren't reproducing because culture had made it. The feminist culture that rose, the pop culture, the rock and roll, the drugs, the smoke, the weed, the end of Vietnam, all of these things that happened was going to make that people weren't going to have children. That white bloc was going to go away. And they realized that, oh, there's more people coming in from the Hispanic countries. And now the Asian countries, like the Koreans, the Chinese, the Filipinos, there's more of them coming in. There's these new waves and generations coming in. And Democrats said, we appeal to them because we're for the poor class. At the time, they would say things for the working class. How things have changed. And they brought up a line, and it was in the LA Times, and it was called Demography is Destiny. That's what they said. That the future of the Democratic Party of America under the Democratic Party was that the United States had to change radically demographically so that they could use the votes of minorities to stay entrenched in power. And that's, at the end of the day, why they want Democrats here. I mean, not Democrats, immigrants here.
Yeah, but have they ever thought that would backfire?
No, because they thought that they could portray the image of being for the working class and that nobody would ever catch on to the fact that, oh no, you're actually the most elitist people in the world because you're arrogant, you have God complexes, many of them are egomaniacs, narcissists like Obama, egomaniacs like Biden, some are pedophiles like Bill Clinton, and some are just ambitious, corrupt careerists like Hillary Clinton, who are very Machiavellian, all of them, and where the ends justify the means. They don't care how it's done; it has to get done. And demography is destiny is the way. They want that's why when they people like Tucker say, "Hey, you guys are actively trying to flush out the white population that's been here for decades and centuries, that has laid its body on the line for this country, that has sweat, blood, tears on this on in our soil. We have a history, we have a nation, we have a culture. You're taking that away for political clout, for political power. They call that, oh, that's right, that's white supremacy. That's that's white fear. That's there's a word they call it, but that's what they deflect to.
Um,
But it's not true. I want to get in. I'm going to show you some Christopher Hitchens videos because I think it's very clear that when people realize what, at the end of the day, what's driving this conflict, it's not colonialism. That's bogus. It's extremism on the religious fronts, and Israel has it too, and Hamas has it, and that's what has motivated Hamas. They want to eliminate the Israeli Jewish people off the face of the planet. That's why they don't like them. It's religious. That's why the conflict over Jerusalem is big to them because the Muslims believe they have a claim to Israel, and the Quran commands them to murder infidels who do not believe in their faith. So I'm going to play some Christopher Hitchens videos because he's always been a spot on. He's an atheist, but he's always been spot on in a way that the progressive atheists hate him for this because atheists can't handle someone who criticizes Islam. It's fashionable to criticize Catholicism. It's not fashionable to criticize Islam. So I'm going to play this. Take a look. You can just.
Pussies.
As a Sufi Muslim, I'm very ruffled by the title of your book. Did you have to settle for the literal negation of Allahu Akbar?
Yes. At the moment, it's very clear to me the most toxic form that religion takes is the Islamic form. The horrible idea of wanting to end up with Sharia, the state of religious law, and that the best means of getting there is jihad, holy war, and that Muslims have a special right to feel aggrieved enough to demand this. I think it's absolute obscene wickedness, and I think their religion is nonsense. God speaks to some illiterate merchant warlord in Arabia, and it contains the answers to all human. Don't waste my time. It's bullshit. But you're saying this thing also that God speaks. The Archangel Gabriel speaks only Arabic. All religions claim to be revealed truth, but Islam dangerously says ours is the last and final one. There can't be any more after this. This is God's last word. Now that's straight away a temptation to violence and intolerance, and if you note, it's a temptation they seem quite willing to fall for. Every Allahu Akbar reminds people that we're in a very serious struggle with a very depraved religion.
Easy, simple,
Wow.
but
Interesting.
just
Wow.
clear. And it does, and that's what it's. I mean, it seems. I gotta do another one. It's 8 minutes long. Actually, it's not 8 minutes long. It's shorter than that. I'm getting this from a different channel, but
Now, do you want to listen to an 8-minute video?
we're not listening to an 8 video. We're gonna talk about just another thing on Islam because this is radical Islam. This is Islamic fundamentalism. This is the extremist Islam, and it has a history. I mean, this is not just
Of course. Yep.
it's not confined just to the Taliban, Iraq. This is back on Bill Maher show with Hitchens versus George Galloway, who was a British MP to the European Union, and he's a far left progressive and pro against the wars and everything. Goes a little bit too far with stuff, but
I don't think I've seen that.
I think I sent it to you, but here it is.
Else. And that's our answer. And Jefferson said, well,
Going at it over Muslim fundamentalism on Bill Maher's show from the mid 2000s. Let's watch.
because the Quran gives us permission to do so, because you are infidels. And that's our answer. And Jefferson said, well, in that case, I will send a navy which will crush your state, which he did. And a good thing,
But there's
too. Islamic fundamentalism is not created by American democracy. It's a lie to say so. It's a masochistic lie. And it excuses those who are the real criminals, and it blames us for the attacks made upon us. Don't have anything to do with this mention.
That we're there fighting them so they won't come and fight us.
It's a bullshit
equally
argument.
ridiculous argument.
Fight them everywhere.
You ask anyone in London
Fight them
this summer
everywhere.
whether they felt that the attacks weren't coming to them, and they'd have said, no, that argument's absurd. Of course, that they are going to be attacking all over the world, be it Morocco, Istanbul, London, and those
And I-
countries
And
are
Mr.
involved.
Blair says, we'll fight them everywhere they do
Is there
that.
not a difference
We'll
between?
fight them everywhere they do.
I know they hate us anyway. I agree. They hate us anyway. But there's
Oh,
a big
that
difference
course.
between.
Who hates you? Muslims hate you?
Well, I think everybody in the world hates us now.
Well,
It's not just Muslims.
this is the point, Bill, that 10,000 new bin Ladens have been created by the policy that your country has adopted.
What kind of-
towards bin Laden?
Oh, Bin Laden.
10,000 new bin have been created because of the policy that has been followed. And this is the biggest test of a policy. Has it made things better or made things worse? And my belief is that Muslims are not angry with us because of who or what we are, but because of what we do. They're angry with us because of our support for Sharon's Israel, principally. Do you know that every one of those settlers in the Gaza Strip got $250,000 to leave land they should never have been on in the first place, and you paid for it?
Well, I would argue
United
with you
States
about
of
that.
America paid for it.
I think that if America pulled all of its
Mm.
forces out of Saudi Arabia,
We did.
fulfilled all the conditions that Al Qaeda has said in the past it wanted, that suddenly you'd see no more Al Qaeda attacks around the world.
I'm
that.
not advocating negotiating with bin Laden and Al Qaeda. I want you to negotiate.
Why
with-
not?
I want you to negotiate with the Muslims who haven't joined them yet, but who might join them tomorrow or the next day.
But
I like the people that you need. Mr. Maher, I have to.
Wow.
If you let me say this, I won't want to say anything more on this show. What Mr. Galloway has just said is quite false. Mr. Galloway trades a better set of manners when he's in Los Angeles from the one that he exhibits when he's in, say, Syria on state television, when he praises the martyrs and the jihadists and the 150 or so operations they conduct every day in Iraq. He goes there to stir it up, and then he comes here to tell us, watch out, they're being nasty. That's, I think, disgraceful.
wow, that's what Arafat
And
used to
then
do.
it seems to me that, it seems to me, I don't know if it does to you, Mr. Bin Laden is a kind guy. I don't think there are 10,000 people like him. And if they're clones of him, suppose there are that many clones, where does he come from? What did American policy do to make him declare war on us?
Policy invented him. No, I mean, I'm astounded at that. It was the United States who invented bin Laden. They sent him to Afghanistan. They gave him money and guns. Jimmy Carter and Ronald Reagan, the president who was being praised by your, on the one hand, but on the other author a minute ago. Ronald Reagan paid for bin Laden.
Yeah.
I heard something about that, but is that true?
Yeah. So he was
Like a
Bin
CIA or
Laden
something like that?
was a mujahideen fighter in Afghanistan versus the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union had its own Vietnam in the 1980s, and it was called Afghanistan. They lost Afghanistan. They used to control Afghanistan. That's Muslim countries went through a thing where if they weren't Muslim theocracies, like Iran or like Saudi Arabia, where they had Muslim kings, they were usually communist. Islam and communism had a little time together. They were married for a little time, and then they realized, oh yeah, that doesn't work. Communism and Islam does not work.
No.
It didn't work at all.
I would imagine that. No.
And so that didn't work in Afghanistan. And so the Soviets that controlled Afghanistan were having problems. And Bin Laden was a mujahideen fighter, and the United States, behind closed doors, supplied and trained a lot of mujahideen fighters. Among them was a young Bin Laden, who, with that training and with that funding and those weapons that they got, and with the country they inherited, or were left with, because once the Soviets left, they left just a vacuum. He, through the Taliban that he led and Al Qaeda, which was aligned with him, took over Afghanistan, and that led to the 9/11 attacks. Al Qaeda and the Taliban controlled Afghanistan. That's why we went in there. And that's why I always say that Afghanistan was the just war, but Iraq was not. Because Afghanistan was the home and the eight headquarters of the Taliban. People always imagine that the Taliban were operating in these caves, like in these movies, that, oh, they were just in mountains. And they had bases out in mountains, but they were really the power center and the people that controlled Afghanistan like they did today. That's what it used to be like. And yeah, they hid in caves and in compounds underground and everything, but they weren't running things from caves. They didn't have laptops in a cave in the middle of a desert.
Yeah, that
That's
wouldn't
not how
work.
it worked.
Yeah.
No, that's not how they ran things. They actually controlled the country. It's just that Osama bin Laden would be in hideouts, and yeah, they would be. Sometimes they would hide out in a cave or in a mountain, or they would have a secret base somewhere, or
Yeah.
away from
I
something.
think you need a strong satellite if you want to run a laptop in a cave.
Well, yeah, they got their ways. The Russians helped them because the Russians then realized, oh yeah, we can use them against the Americans and get payback. So it's a whole geopolitical game.
Yeah.
It's like how the Russians supply Iran and supply Hezbollah and fund them because Iran can't do it on its own. And thus Hezbollah helps Hamas. They're both kind of the same thing at this point, a mercenary force, a terroristic mercenary force that runs all over the world. If I told you that Hamas was in South America, you wouldn't believe me. If I told you that Hezbollah has been in South America for 20, 30 years, you wouldn't believe me, but that's the truth. They have been. Hamas and Hezbollah are in Colombia right now, and they've been there for 30, 40 years. 30, 40 years, recruiting, training, because they're aligned with FARC, ELN, and all the other communist guerrillas that have been there before. This is not a simple thing. This is why people don't realize it's not a simple thing. It isn't. This is what I hate when people say I like Putin because he's against gays. Yeah, well, he also supports the people that kill you. Didn't you know that the Russians support?
I've noticed that a lot.
People don't realize that Putin himself is an ally to Hezbollah, the same Hezbollah that kills Americans abroad and conducts terrorist operations when the Americans were in war in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Hezbollah was aligned in helping them commit terrorist attacks. And in that war, they were there helping the Muslims. They were there. People don't remember that, but Putin has been funding them. See, has always funded them, has always helped them out. It's not easy information, but the South Americans know that. South America knows that. The Africans know it. The Americans ignore it because they're too focused on their issues.
Right.
It's I see this entire generation saying, I would love to interview Putin because he's against the vaccine. Okay, yeah, but what's the point of, would you rather get a vaccine or be dead because of a Hezbollah-funded terror
yeah,
plot?
he doesn't like us. Like, what are you
He
guys
doesn't
doing?
like you. He may respect you like he respects Trump, but he doesn't like you. He doesn't want to be like you because he doesn't trust you. And Russians have always been distrusting people. They're not trustworthy. They don't like you. They don't like the West. That's why they're friends with China, because for a long time, even though they're European in ancestry, and for a long time they tried to be European and model themselves after the West, they've always been aligned with Asia because they're there. They're literally, most of their population or their landmass is in Asia. They're not just a European country. They're literally in Asia.
Yeah.
They're only brought into the conflict because they're white and in European ancestry.
How much you want to bet? Not a lot of people know that.
Now, people don't know that, but it's a complicated history. It's not that I'm a genius. I'm not, but it's because I read and I talk and I see different news outlets and people say things, and I think and I think they don't want to admit things. They like to say, "Well, where's the proof? You think this is on Google? This isn't on Google." I always laugh. People say, "Where's the proof?" I don't have. There is no physical proof because they don't write things down. It's all said. Listen to what they say. Listen to who they hang around with. When the president of Venezuela and the Cubans and the Nicaraguans and the Brazilian like Lula come out and say, "Oh yeah, we support Palestine and Hamas is a great people," and they invite the Iranians and the Hezbollah fighters are stationed in Venezuela, that should tell you something. That things should say things to you. Politics isn't about just what they say. It's who they're with and what they do, and not a lot of that is factual or not. The AP and Politico, they're not writing about that. They're not doing that because they don't get it. They'll just report and say Hezbollah was in Venezuela. Okay, that's it. They don't have an opinion because Nancy Pelosi, remember, said Hezbollah were nice people. Remember what Nancy Pelosi said about Hamas? She said they were a humanitarian group.
I want to see her go.
She said that 2 years ago.
Go hang out with them.
Well, she said that 2 years ago. She said Hamas is a humanitarian group. The Speaker of the House said that.
She
I
only
mean, come on.
last 30 minutes.
Come on now. Let's be serious here. So we've talked a little bit about the overall history of Israel and Palestine and the conflict. You know, we've seen the progressives and
Yeah. Well, we're just waiting for tomorrow.
yeah, it's today is the eve of
What did he call it again?
Global Jihadi Day.
Day of Jihadi.
Day of Jihadi.
Hamas has called upon their Islamism friends for a day of jihadi terror. Huh. Well, look at this. Friday, October 13, 1307, French Templars were arrested by King Philip, tortured into admitting heresy and killed. It is a Crusader
In
reference.
1788, when the United States was barely a country,
Right.
it was having its sailors taken as slaves by the Barbary states, the states of the Ottoman Empire in North Africa.
Tripoli.
Tripoli.
Shores of
exactly,
Tripoli.
Shores of Tripoli. Ships stopped. Its crews carried off into slavery. We estimate 1.5 million European and American slaves taken between 1750 and 1815. Jefferson and Adams went to their ambassador in London and said, why do you do this to us? The United States has never had a quarrel with the Muslim world of any kind. We weren't in the Crusades. We weren't in the war in Spain. Why do you do this to our people and our ships? Why do you plunder and enslave our people? And the ambassador said very plainly, Mr. Abdul Rahman said, because the Quran gives us permission to do so, because you are infidels. And that's our answer. And Jefferson said, well, in that case, I will send a navy which will crush your state, which he did. Islamic fundamentalism is not created by American democracy. It's a lie to say so. It's a masochistic lie. And it excuses those who are the real criminals, and it blames us for the attacks made upon us.
Yeah, that's like literally it. It's like, oh yeah. And so they always had that problem, and the people don't want to discuss that. They like to say that, well, no, that's not, we don't really do that, and etc. But that's been a problem.
Yeah.
It's never been addressed. It's that there is a fundamentally big problem with Islam. Fundamentally, it is an extremist position, and Christians are not like that. But that's just how it is. Let's just move on into the speaker fight, into the what's happening in the speaker. So there's been some breaking news here. You reported to us that Steve Scalise, a congressman out of Louisiana, has dropped out of the race in for the speakership.
Right.
What happened?
No, I'm just laughing about that whole story because I mentioned to you right before the podcast. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, honestly.
Yeah, there's no explanation. Everybody's just focused on today, but there's no historical background. Nobody wants to talk about it. The kids who post on IG and say "Free Palestine, Free Palestine," they don't know that the people holding Palestine back isn't Israel. It's Hamas.
No, I'm talking about the House of Speaker story.
Oh right, yeah,
Yeah, like everything's just like going on right now.
Oh, it's a complete shit show. So
yeah,
like we talked about last week, and I think on our Patreon too. I ranted about it on our Patreon, so check that out. Link down below. Matt Gaetz, he's done. He wanted to, I guess, have some fun. He wanted to get, a boner. He finally put a motion in to get rid of Kevin McCarthy, and he ejaculated for the first time in years because there were no 14-year-old girls near him. He says that didn't happen, but guess what? We don't know about that yet.
Oh man.
So, anyways, he's getting his kicks off, and
hey, you never know. He probably did something with AOC.
well, that's our favorite big booty Latina. So, all right. So, what's his face? Kevin McCarthy, out as speaker. In is Patrick McHenry, who is the acting speaker. He's the guy who kicked Nancy Pelosi out of her special office, which she shouldn't have had because she's not just the former speaker, but she's not even in any position of leadership in the party anymore. She's just a normal person. And so he kicked her out of her offices, which they complained about and said, that's so terrible. It's like, well, she shouldn't really have the office. It should probably go to someone else.
Yeah.
Who needs one, if they need one. And um, we now have a battle in the Republican Party is that who is more conservative than the other person, as if that matters today. It doesn't. Here's the problem Republicans have, and they're not realizing, is that no matter what they do, no matter who they put up there, no bills will ever be passed unless they have permission from the Senate. You can vote for a speaker after 2024, but you're going to need someone to be the placeholder for a position that's really just a lame duck. You're just there to pass business, maybe cut spending, but you can't because the president is never going to sign a bill to cut spending. And that should be a point that's told more. In a time of in a recessionary period, the president has refused to cut spending. In a time of high inflation, the president has refused to sign anything cutting spending. He won't. He won't cut discretionary funding for anything. Republicans should say that more, but they don't. Instead, they say, we need a conservative MAGA speaker. And my question is, why? 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 Like, what is he going to do? What is she going to do? What are they going to do? Nothing, because they can't. Because even if they get a bill through the Senate, the president's is going to veto it. And he's going to keep vetoing it. And if they veto it, the Senate doesn't like redoing bills after the president has vetoed it because the Democrats in the party are not going to vote again on it. And the Democrats in the House aren't going to either. So that's not going to happen. But Republicans, in their usually fashion, they always know how to fuck something up. So they're here doing it again. And people don't like drama. People don't want drama. They're going to say, hey, we elected you guys in 2022 in the midterms because you guys said you could fix the House. You went in there and you created a shit show. Not only the first time did you take 15 ballots to vote in your speaker, now you can't decide on who's going to be the nominee. You can't even decide who's going to fail. You know what this is? This is my analogy to this. You and I are going out to dinner. We're gonna go out. We chose a place. You know what? We're gonna have dinner, chat. We're gonna reminisce on old times, and we're gonna meet up as friends, and have a good time. Kevin is our waiter, Kevin McCarthy. You don't like Kevin. I'm okay with Kevin. You kick out Kevin, we can no longer have Kevin. We're arguing over the waiter. Now, there's two waiters here now. There's Steve and there's Jim. You like Jim, and I'm okay with Steve. But we haven't even seen the menu yet. We haven't ordered.
Right.
I don't know what we're going to eat, and you don't either. But we're just fighting over the waiter, so nothing gets done. And by the time we decide, it's done because the restaurant's closing. So all we got was bread. All we got was the bread and butter, and the butter was stale, and the bread wasn't that good. And the forks couldn't open up the bread, so I left the bad review on Yelp. So nothing happened.
Yeah, that whole scenario you just mentioned is just like what's happening.
Literally what happened. So I don't know the menu. I mean, I get it. Kevin, he was great. He's a great people person. I like it. You didn't like it because, sometimes he looks kind of fake. He's not focused on, he wants to upsell the desserts and the wine, and he wants to get us to get expensive stuff. I liked it, I don't mind it. And you're saying, I don't like that. I want a dude who comes in like Jim. Jim's going to come in and he's going to give me exactly what I want. He knows what I want. He's going to come in. He's going to tell me, you want the chicken parm, and he's going to give it to you. All right. But Steve is different. Steve is like, let's have a good time. I'm going to be focused on giving you guys a good time. What do you want? You want this? You want that? I'll show you the options. I haven't even gotten to get the options. No one's giving me options. I don't even have a menu in my hand. All I have is water, bread, and butter.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So
yeah.
The Republicans, they win the House, and all they keep saying is immigration. That's the line that the waiters keep telling us. Oh, yeah, immigration's out of control and the inflation. Everyone agrees on that. Everyone in the Republican Party agrees on that. But I want the menu. I want to see what the main dishes are. What are the appetizers? Give me the sides. Is the lobster bisque fresh? Is the lobster fresh? Is the veal good? Is the veal good here? Is it good here? No one's telling me anything. What are you going to do to fix the economy? What bills are you going to sign on immigration? Like, what are you going to do about immigration? Complain about it? Like, for the 250th time? I mean, we don't have a plan. There is no plan. There is
There's no
nothing.
plan.
Marjorie Taylor Greene keeps complaining about, I don't like Kevin. Okay, well, who do you like? Me? I'm not there, honey. I can't be the speaker.
You like me?
She doesn't like Indians. And so I need to see a plan, and they're not doing that. And this is why I think the Republicans always do this. They always sabotage themselves and then blame the Democrats as to why they can't win. No, it's you can't win because when you're
Yeah.
or you can't handle yourself. And when you finally have a leader who gets things done like Trump, you just bullshit him along the way. People like Ron DeSantis voted against the wall. We could have had a wall, Ron, but you voted against it. You could have had a wall in, like the wall in front of you that prevents people from actually liking you because you're an annoying bitch. But anyways,
Get roasted.
I mean that's just what happens. That's just what happens, and um,
All right. So what's next though? So now,
so Steve is
he,
out.
yeah. So he's out. So what's next now? Now they're gonna have Jordan.
So they're gonna bring another waiter in, or we're gonna see if the only waiter left is Jim. But we're gonna see. So maybe they nominate someone else. What has to happen is they have to settle on a speaker. If it's Jim, it's Jim. Jim is our waiter. All right. Steve needs to go to the rest of the restaurant and let them know, hey, Steve is our waiter. Not Steve. I mean, Jim is the waiter now, not me. Choose him. And he needs to go, and that ring of the party needs to go and say, hey, guys, you guys need to support Jim because Jim is the party. Now, Kevin wants to come back. He wants to be our waiter again.
I don't mind actually.
Okay. That would be a remedy.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having.
And this
him
is
back.
why I get it. You want a conservative speaker, but it doesn't make sense to do it now because what is a conservative speaker going to do? Now, I don't like, I mean, I think the idea of signing a bill for 45 days, I think that's because Kevin doesn't want to take the responsibility of being the guy who shut down the government. But Democrats are going to put it that way anyways. And the government's going to shut down anyways because they can't afford to be open because there's a $2 trillion annual deficit every year and we can't afford it. And so they should have done what Trump said back when they were talking about the deficit, the debt ceiling. You're going to default on the currency. You're going to default on the debt eventually. You should threaten to do it now and make the Democrats cave because if we don't, because they're going to do it eventually, because this is unsustainable. The way they're spending is unsustainable. They're going to default on the debt eventually because they have to. They have to. And so Democrats are playing the game of you can't let the government shut down. But it's going to happen eventually because you can't fund the government like this forever. And so Kevin failed to realize that. And I don't think he heard I don't think anybody was giving that advice. You should have just kept it in and said, yeah, we're not gonna open it back up until the president says he's gonna cut spending a little bit. He has to go out there and tell people we have been the only one negotiating. The president does not want to negotiate. He does not want to cut spending. He is lying and he does not want to cut spending. He needs to cut spending to get out of this inflation. The inflation has been caused because he cut spending. No one wants to say that though. They like to say the border. Can you stop putting out the middle finger, bro? The border. They're just saying the border all the time. And they're saying illegal immigration, but they're not fixing anything. They're not
Is
giving us.
Is there a certain deadline if they can't find another one to nominate?
I don't think so. I'm not really in line with those rules, so I don't know.
That's
But I don't think so. I think they'll just keep this acting speaker until they find one. I think they might have maybe they think next week. I think the reason why Steve dropped out is because he knew he didn't have the votes.
Yeah.
He knew he didn't have
Yeah.
217. He needs 217. I think he knew.
Confronted a likely surmountable vote shortage. Yeah.
So I think he probably said, you know what, I'm not going to go. I don't want to be like Kevin. I'll just be the waiter that left. So, bye.
How much do you know about Steve?
So Steve has been there for a while now. He is the number 2 in charge of the Republican Party in the House. He was for a while. He always was.
Okay.
He was the majority whip. He was the minority whip. and now he was the majority leader in the House. So he was the majority leader, which is the number 2 position behind the speaker, and so he's always been in power. So that's why people look at him as more as establishmentarian. He's been an ally of Trump. He's always been good with Trump. Remember, he was the congressman that was shot by the Bernie Sanders
I
fanatic.
heard about that. Yeah.
So that was him in 2017 at the congressional baseball game tryouts. He was shot by a Bernie Sanders sycophant. And, he's had bouts with cancer. Right now, he's battling, I think, lymphoma or melanoma. So I don't think he was the ideal pick, but he was the right guy. He's the next up, but he's not the right guy at the time because he's not healthy. The job of speaker, what Matt Gaetz doesn't understand, and that's why he doesn't want to come out and tell the truth, is that he wants to be speaker because he can't. Nobody likes him, even the 14-year-old girls he likes. He can't be speaker because the job of speaker means you have to sell your party to the donors that fund your congressional races. The $100 million, the $10 million people who run these PACs, all these people that donate to the super PACs, they need to be convinced. And conservatives fail at that job because no one in Orange County, where Kevin McCarthy is from, nobody wants to hear, we're gonna shut down the FBI 20,000 times, like all the other conservatives do. They don't want to hear that. Chip Roy is not the most comforting person to listen to. He's one of the hardline MAGA. He supports Ron DeSantis. Ron can't even talk about this. All he does is mention Florida, because in Florida we actually have a speaker. Answer the damn question. You're going to if you're the president, you're leader of the party, you have to address this, but he can't. He has to talk about Florida, and so Chip Roy endorses Ron DeSantis. Chip Roy is making a mess out of things by getting rid of the speaker, and Ron DeSantis can't even say something about his biggest supporter talking about helping make this mess. Go figure. So, this is gonna be a shit show. This isn't gonna end well. Republicans are gonna probably lose the midterms or not win more seats than what they have now. They're gonna lose George Santos. I don't think another Republican can go back in there and win. I think.
I forgot about him.
My favorite congressman. In an ordinary world, Republicans should be winning because this is a horrible president, but they're not because of shenanigans like this.
Yeah.
Lauren Boebert is probably out. She's probably going to get primaried, and if she's not primaried, hopefully she is, and they're going to lose. She's going to lose, and that's going to be a problem. How do we do things? Who's winning this? How do we?
My wife cheated on me.
Your wife cheated on you, and we're going to have to address. This is going to be a problem we're going to have to address, and Trump can't fix everything. Sorry. He endorsed Jim, and he didn't endorse Steve, and everybody's saying, "Ha ha, Trump's guy lost." Well, the guy Trump didn't endorse, who Trump likes, but he probably knows it's like Steve's not up for it. Steve's not up for the job. Steve's got to travel across the country. He has to do donors, then he has to do chemo, then he has to gather votes and select committees and do all this work. It's a big job.
So he's not healthy.
It's not up for it. Yeah, he's older. He's not up for it. I love him, but he's not up for it. So I think Trump sees that and says, let's be sympathetic. That's going to be a problem.
If they're gonna nominate Jordan, just hope that he does a fine job, but can't really expect him, to get everything accomplished.
He won't, because you can't. There's a Democratic Senate and there's a Democratic president who's going to veto.
Yeah.
So
it's like there's extra different walls that he still needs to go through.
Yeah. Exactly. And then even if you had the Senate, you have McConnell, who's not really going to pass anything except because he's going to try to get on the president's good side.
Turtle Man.
Yeah, Turtle, who really should have been replaced by Rick Scott last time, but Rick Scott kind of fucked himself over with saying that I'm going to cut Social Security. Thanks, Rick. Love you, but come on, boy.
He really said that.
Oh yeah, that was his plan, and everybody freaked the fuck out.
Run, everyone.
Yeah, they did. And then Ron DeSantis said, Florida. And that's how we're ending the show, Florida. And
that's all he said.
That's all he said. That's how we're gonna end the show. Guys, appreciate it. Hope you guys enjoyed this kind of historical analytical episode. Big topics. Stay safe on the best day of the year. Today is October the 12th, Global Jihad Eve. Tomorrow is Global Jihad Day. So
So
celebrate.
fucking annoying tomorrow.
Let's hope nothing happens. No sleeper cells come out, and stay safe. And best of all, stay what?
Stay racist, but also make sure you guys have your guns out.
Yeah, stay racist and join
Fuck
the
around and
KKK.
find out.
Yeah, fuck around and find out. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye bye.